She
Hey,
sat
I
on
was
my
just
lap,
thinking about that
her
time we
smile
went
soft
camping.
but
Oh, I see
electric,
Mount
and
Pies,
whispered,
dude.
No, you ran
"Close the door
Salinas.
first,
Oh, yeah.
then
That
stay
was an
with me tonight."
adventure.
My heart stopped. The room felt smaller. And in that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same. Hey, where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below with your city, and let's see how many places this story reaches. It was a chilly evening in February 2025, and I was sitting in my small Seattle apartment, the kind with creaky floors and a view of the Puget Sound if you squinted hard enough. My name's Ethan Carter, a 32-year-old graphic designer who'd been grinding through freelance gigs, trying to make a name for myself in a city that felt both vibrant and lonely. That night, I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary. Just another evening of sketching logos, sipping coffee, and maybe scrolling through social media for a distraction. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mia Thompson, a friend from my old college days at the University of Washington. Mia and I had always had this easy chemistry, the kind where you laugh a little too hard at each other's jokes and linger a second too long in a hug. We'd kept in touch over the years, but it was mostly quick texts or the occasional coffee catch-up. Her message was simple. "You free tonight? Need to talk?" I didn't think much of it. Mia was always the type to pop into my life when she needed a sounding board. Whether it was about her latest job drama or some guy she was dating who inevitably didn't deserve her, I replied, "Sure, come over." Doors open. I figured she'd show up, we'd chat, maybe order some takeout, and she'd head home. That's how it always went. When Mia arrived, she looked different. Not in a drastic way, but there was something in her eyes. A spark maybe, or a weight I hadn't noticed before. She was dressed casually, jeans and a navy sweater, her dark hair pulled back loosely. She kicked off her shoes at the door, tossed her jacket on the couch, and gave me that familiar grin. "Ethan, you need to get out more. This place smells like coffee and regret." We laughed, and I offered her a drink. She opted for water, which was unusual. Mia was a wine girl through and through. We sat on my couch, the city lights flickering through the window, and started catching up. She told me about her new job at a tech startup, how she was managing a team now, and how the pressure was starting to get to her. I listened, nodded, threw in a few jokes to lighten the mood. But the whole time, I could tell something was off. She was fidgety, her fingers tapping against her glass, her eyes darting to mine, and then away. About an hour into her visit, Mia set her glass down and shifted closer to me on the couch. The air changed like the moment before a storm hits. She looked at me, her brown eyes steady, and said, "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Of course," I said, leaning back, trying to keep things light. She hesitated, then slid even closer, her knee brushing against mine. "Do you ever think about us? Like, what could have been?" I froze. Mai and I had danced around this question in college. There had been moments, late-night study sessions, a drunken dance at a frat party where it felt like something could happen. But we'd always stayed in the friend zone, mostly because I was too cautious, too afraid of ruining what we had. Now here she was asking the question I'd buried years ago. I mean, yeah, I admitted, my voice quieter than I meant it to be sometimes. She smiled, but it wasn't her usual playful grin. It was softer, almost vulnerable. Then, without warning, she moved, climbing onto my lap, her hands resting lightly on my shoulders. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. She leaned in, her breath warm against my cheek, and whispered, "Close the door first, then stay with me tonight." The words hit me like a freight train. My apartment door was already closed, but I knew what she meant. A gesture, a signal to shut out the world and make this moment just ours. My mind raced. This was Mia, my friend. The one who'd always been there, but never here. Not like this. Part of me wanted to laugh it off, to pretend she was joking. But the way she was looking at me, the weight of her body against mine, told me this was real. "Mia," I started, my voice shaky. "What's going on? Are you okay?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she slid off my lap and stood, pacing a few steps toward the window. "I don't know, Ethan," she said, her back to me. I'm tired of playing it safe. I'm tired of wondering what my life would be like if I'd taken more risks with work, with people, with you." I didn't know what to say. My brain was stuck, replaying her words. trying to process the fact that Mia was standing in my living room telling me she wanted something more. The suspense was killing me, not just because of what she'd said, but because I didn't know what I'd do next. Say yes and I risk changing everything. Say no and I might lose her for good. I stood up trying to steady my nerves. Mia, hold on. This is a lot. Can we talk about this? She turned to face me, her expression a mix of frustration and determination. That's the problem, Ethan. We always talk. We talk. We laugh. We go back to our lives. But tonight I don't want to just talk. I want to feel something. Her words cut deep. I spent so much of my life playing it safe too. Taking freelance gigs instead of chasing bigger dreams. Staying single because it was easier than getting hurt. Mia was calling me out and it stung because she was right. Okay, I said, taking a step toward her. Let's say I close that door metaphorically or whatever. What happens next? What are we doing here? As she crossed her arms, her eyes searching mine. I don't have a plan, Ethan. I just know I've spent years wondering what it would be like to be more than your friend. And tonight, I don't want to wonder anymore. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. My whole life, I'd been the guy who thought things through, who weighed every pro and con. But Mia was asking me to jump, and for the first time, I wanted to. I took a deep breath and said, okay. Doors closed. I'm here. Her face softened, and she stepped closer, her hand brushing against mine. For a moment, we just stood there, the tension between us thick enough to choke on. Then she laughed, a nervous little sound, and said, God, I didn't think you'd actually say yes. That broke the ice. We both laughed and I pulled her into a hug, my arms wrapping around her like they'd always known how. But this wasn't our usual friendly hug. It was tighter, warmer, charged with something new. When we pulled back, her eyes were on mine again, and I could feel the question hanging between us. What now? We sat back on the couch closer this time and started talking. Not about the usual stuff, but about the what-ifs we'd both been avoiding. She told me how she'd had a crush on me in college, how she'd waited for me to make a move that never came. I admitted I'd been too scared to risk our friendship, too afraid she'd say no. It was like peeling back layers we'd both kept hidden. And with every word, I felt closer to her than I ever had. But the suspense didn't let up. Every time our hands brushed or our eyes met, I wondered if we were really going to cross that line. Part of me was still terrified. Terrified of what it would mean for our friendship, for my carefully controlled life. Mia seemed to sense it because she kept the conversation light, teasing me about my terrible taste in coffee, or the fact that I still had a flip phone in 2025. But her words from earlier kept echoing in my head. Stay with me tonight. As the night went on, we ordered pizza, cracked open a couple of beers, and talked until the city outside went quiet. It was past midnight when she leaned her head on my shoulder and said, You know, I didn't come here expecting this. I needed to see you. Why tonight? I asked, my voice soft. She sighed, her fingers tracing the edge of her beer bottle. I got some news today. My company's sending me to their New York office. It's a big promotion, but it means leaving Seattle. Leaving you. My stomach dropped. Mia leaving. The thought hit me harder than I expected. I'd always known she was ambitious, but the idea of her being across the country felt wrong. Like a piece of my life was being carved out. When I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, next month, she said, I found out this morning, and all I could think about was you. About how I've never told you how I really feel, and I couldn't leave without knowing. The weight of her words settled over me. This wasn't just about tonight anymore. It was about everything we'd left unsaid. Everything we'd been too afraid to face. And now, with her leaving, the clock was ticking. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I'd been an idiot for years. Mia wasn't just my friend. She was the person who made every moment better, who made me want to be better. And I'd been too scared to admit it until she was sitting here telling me she was leaving. Mia, I said, taking her hand, I don't want you to go without knowing either. I've always cared about you more than I ever let on. And if you're leaving, then maybe we need to make tonight count. Her eyes lit up and she squeezed my hand. So what are you saying, Ethan? I smiled, my heart racing, but steady for the first time all night. I'm saying I'm closing the door and I'm staying with you, Not just tonight, but for as long as you'll let me. She laughed, a real full laugh, and pulled me into a kiss that felt like it had been waiting years to happen. It was soft at first, then deeper, like we were making up for all the time we'd lost. When we finally pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine and whispered, "You're gonna have to visit me in New York, you know." "Deal," I said, grinning, "but only if you promise to come back and visit my sad little apartment." We stayed up until dawn, talking, laughing, kissing, planning. The twist wasn't just that Maya and I finally crossed that line. It was that her leaving was the push we both needed to stop hiding from what we wanted. By the time the sun came up, I knew I wasn't just losing a friend. I was gaining something bigger, something real, even if it meant navigating a long-distance relationship across the country. So that's my story. A night that started with a simple text turned into the moment that changed everything. If you've got a story like this, a moment that flipped your life upside down, share it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories like this one. Where are you watching from? Let me know below.